My name is Tony Sterland. At 26, I thought I had my whole life ahead of me. I was raised in a strict evangelical Christian family in Ohio, where faith was something I inherited rather than questioned. Sunday services, Bible study, youth group, it was all routine. But everything changed when I started feeling sick in ways I couldn't explain. The fatigue was crushing, the pain was constant, and something deep inside told me this wasn't normal. The doctors ran test after test, blood work, scans, biopsies. Finally, they called me into that sterile room with fluorescent lights and delivered the devastating news: terminal ovarian and uterine cancer. Stage 4. 3 to 4 years to live. Maximum. The words hit me like a physical blow. For someone whose greatest dream was to become a mother, to build a family, this was a double tragedy. Not only was I facing death at 26, but they told me having children was medically impossible. The cancer had spread too far. I fell into complete despair. I turned to my childhood faith, praying desperately to find comfort and answers. I attended prayer meetings, sought counseling from pastors, and begged God for healing. But instead of peace, I found only confusion and emptiness. The concept of the Trinity made no sense when I was staring death in the face. Original sin, predestination, the idea that God sacrificed his son, none of it brought me comfort. I felt spiritually hollow, knowing there had to be a creator, but realizing I didn't truly know him. The chemotherapy was brutal. I lost my hair, my strength, my hope, but something inside me refused to give up. With time running out, I made a decision. I would dedicate whatever days I had left to finding the truth about God. I read books on different religions, philosophy, comparative theology. I was searching desperately for a God of pure mercy, a God of ultimate justice, a God who made sense. Then I found a translation of the Qur'an at a bookstore. I wasn't looking for it specifically, it just caught my eye. When I began reading it, something incredible happened. The words didn't just speak to my mind, they healed my broken heart. I read about pure monotheism, about Tawheed. No Trinity, no intermediaries, no confusing theology. Just one God, Allah, who is closer to you than your jugular vein. I read about sabr, patience in the face of trials, and tawakkul, complete trust in Allah's plan. The verse that changed everything was, "And He is with you wherever you are." In my hospital bed, facing death, those words became my lifeline. I read about prophets who faced impossible odds, about believers who trusted Allah even when everything seemed hopeless. For the first time since my diagnosis, I felt genuine peace. Driven by undeniable conviction, I went to the local mosque. My hands were shaking as I walked through the doors. The imam was kind, patient, understanding. With tears streaming down my face, I took my Shahada. I declared with complete certainty that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. The moment those words left my lips, something shifted inside me. A weight I didn't even know I was carrying lifted from my shoulders. Taking that step brought me profound inner peace that defied all medical logic. I stopped fighting my illness and started accepting Allah's will. I handed my cancer, my fears, my broken dreams of motherhood over to Allah. I achieved true tawakkul, complete trust in His plan, whether that meant healing or death. But Allah, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, had a different plan for me. Shortly after my conversion, I went back to the hospital for routine scans. When the doctors looked at the results, they were completely speechless. They ran the tests again, called in specialists, refused to believe their own eyes. The aggressive, terminal cancer that was supposed to kill me in 3 years was disappearing. Tumors were shrinking, cancer markers were dropping, my body was healing in ways that defied every medical textbook. Against all scientific odds, I experienced complete recovery. The doctors had no explanation. They used words like spontaneous remission and medical anomaly, but I knew exactly who had cured me. Allah, al-Shafi, the healer, had answered my prayers in ways I never imagined possible. The miracle didn't end there. 6 months later, the woman who was told she would never have children, whose reproductive organs were supposedly destroyed by cancer, discovered she was pregnant. The doctors were stunned. They said it was impossible, that my body couldn't sustain a pregnancy, but Allah's power knows no limits. I carried that baby to full term and gave birth to a perfectly healthy, beautiful boy. I named him Yusuf, after the prophet who went from the depths of a prison to the heights of power through Allah's mercy. My name is Barbara. I was a sociology student living in Paris, raised in a traditional Catholic family, but distant from the church, like many young Europeans. My relationship with religion was complicated. I believed in God, but found organized religion outdated and irrelevant. What I knew about Islam came entirely from French media coverage, which painted it as harsh, oppressive, completely foreign to my modern, intellectual lifestyle. I had absorbed every stereotype without question. During my third year at university, I became close friends with my roommate Aicha, a brilliant young woman from Morocco. We spent hours discussing sociology, philosophy, politics. When a semester break approached, she invited me to Morocco for 2 weeks to meet her family. Seeking adventure and a break from Parisian winter, I agreed, expecting just a nice tourist experience in an exotic location. I had no idea I was about to find my soul's true home. From the moment I stepped off the plane in Casablanca, my preconceptions began to shatter. Instead of the harshness the media had promised, I was enveloped in overwhelming warmth and genuine hospitality. Aicha's family welcomed me like a daughter, despite knowing I was Christian and French. Living with them, I observed something beautiful and profound that challenged everything I thought I knew. I saw ordinary Muslims living their daily lives with a rhythm and purpose I had never witnessed. Their entire day was beautifully structured around the 5 daily prayers. I watched Aicha's grandmother, a woman in her 80s, rise before dawn for Fajr with a smile on her face. I witnessed the immense respect children showed their parents, the deep bonds of extended family, the incredible generosity shown to me. A foreign guest of different faith and culture, this was Islamic dawah in its purest, most authentic form. Nobody tried to convert me or engage me in theological debates. They weren't arguing Christianity versus Islam. They were simply living beautifully, embodying the values they believed in. I was profoundly moved by the peace I saw in their faces when they bowed in prayer, the contentment in their voices when they said, Alhamdulillah, for simple blessings, the way they treated each other with genuine love and respect. I realized that the Islam I saw on French news and the real Islam lived by these people were two completely different universes. The media had shown me extremists and politicians, but here I was witnessing ordinary families living with extraordinary grace, kindness, and spiritual depth. When those 2 weeks ended, I returned to France as a fundamentally different person. My sociological mind demanded truth and evidence. If the media was so completely wrong about Muslims and their daily lives, what else were they wrong about? What was Islam really about? I had to know. I went to a bookstore and purchased a French translation of the Qur'an. With complete intellectual honesty and scientific curiosity, I began to read. Much like Tony, I was struck by the clarity and coherence of the Qur'an. As a sociology student, I was amazed by the perfect balance of justice, mercy, social structure, and spiritual depth found within its pages. The Quran addressed questions about society, economics, family life, personal development, and spiritual growth in ways that felt both timeless and remarkably relevant. There was no sudden dramatic crisis in my life like Tony experienced. My conversion was quiet, intellectual, and deeply spiritual. The more I read, the more my old cultural identity and assumptions melted away. I studied Islamic history, read about the Prophet Muhammad's life, learned about Islamic civilization's contributions to science, philosophy, and human rights. I couldn't deny the truth any longer. In the quiet privacy of my heart, and later with the local Muslim community in Paris, I took my Shahada. I embraced the hijab not as oppression, but as a crown of my newfound liberation and conscious submission to the Creator. My family was shocked, my friends were confused, but I had never felt more authentically myself. Two completely different women, two completely different paths to Islam. Tony, the American who found Allah while staring at death and experienced a physical miracle. Barbara, the French student who found Allah through the beautiful example of ordinary Muslims and experienced a miracle of the heart and mind. Both stories prove that Allah guides whoever seeks Him sincerely, whether through hardship or through beauty, through crisis or through quiet reflection.